This is United Reborn, and today I'm going to look at how likely it is for United's back three to have success this season, even with the new additions made so far in the transfer market. I'm going to go through the past couple of seasons, 2023-2024, and last season, 2024-2025, to take a look at which teams did play a back three other than United, how successful they were. Then I'm going to go through how Chelsea won the league in 2016-17 season under Conte, playing a back three, why they won it, and why United might struggle to replicate that success in the future. Then at the end of the video, I'm just going to quickly go through some previous Premier League winning central defensive partnerships of a back four defensive unit. I already did a full video of this on my other football, just football and soccer. Take a look at it here if you want to look through that. But this will also highlight the point and kind of the fact that it is important to have that secure foundation and partnership at the back, which is very difficult when you don't have that structure with players who, one, aren't comfortable with playing three at the back, and two, are in a squad that hasn't got the strength and depth in their defensive numbers. So United, again, could struggle this season. I do need to point out first that when people talk about formations, whether it be a back three or a back four or a 3-5-2 or a 4-2-3-1, I'm a coach, I'm a qualified coach. That isn't looking down on people who aren't a coach and are into football. However, we like to call it more shape, because you can set a formation out, but when players start, they obviously move position. Especially Pep, when you've got a central defender going into the midfield to play midfield, you're not necessarily playing the three at the back with flying wingers either side of a central pairing of a central trio. Each time a player moves around on the pitch into a different position, it may only be for 10 minutes, it may be for the majority of the match, the shape changes. So a lot of people do fall in the trap of watching the game and saying, oh, they're playing a 4-4-2. Well, in fact, they're not really playing a formation, because the shape is changing depending on if they're in a defensive phase of play, an attacking phase of play, if they're trying to hold on to possession more, if they're playing counter-attack. It can change many or multiple times throughout a game. However, just for the sake of making an easy viewable video, I will use the formations as in 3 at the back and 4 at the back, because this video is about 3 at the back. So first of all, I'm going to start with the 2023 and 2024 season, where we had newly promoted teams get relegated, and you can say, look, Luton and Sheffield United, they did need to focus on trying to get 5 defenders in place as much as possible. So it almost seems unfair that they're being kind of labelled with this tag of failing with a 3 at the back because they got relegated using this shape or using this formation. However, I just want to give you the stats as it happened from that season. Okay, so 2023-2024, we had Luton, who came 18th and were relegated. Predominantly using 3 defenders at the back as well. Now, with the perceived lower teams in any league or in underdogs in any match, you will find that they are often defending with 5 defenders, sometimes 5 defenders in a 5-4-1 unit. Sometimes a 5-5-0. You can't blame them for that. They try and hit teams on the counter-attack. Sometimes they don't even show any interest in attacking. And Sheffield United were a little bit more attacking. They ended up actually coming bottom 20th and getting relegated as well, with Chris Wilder also opting for that kind of 3 at the back, stroke 5 at the back. But comparing these two to United, not really comparable, although last season, United could have been comparable with their final league position. But 2023-24 was Sheffield United. Luton went down, attempting to play with this shape. Moving on to Wolverhampton Wanderers under Gary O'Neill, ended up 14th position. And we also had Brentford in this season, 16th position under Thomas Frank, predominantly using 3 at the back shape, or you couldn't say shape with wing backs, and focusing on 3 central defenders. So when you're looking at that, all them teams I've just mentioned there isn't really enough evidence to show that it was groundbreaking. Now you can see why some teams do it, especially newly promoted teams or the perceived lower teams, or the ones who haven't got the strength in depth or even a strong enough first 11 to put out on the pitch. On the Switch side, you haven't got two teams what came in top 10 who were predominantly using a back three shape. But wait, you may be thinking, hold on a minute, isn't that the season Manchester City won the league title, predominantly using three central defenders? And yes, it kind of was. They did win the league, and they did kind of have this shape with mostly three central defenders because teams just couldn't play against them, so they didn't need a four at the back. And they did use mostly John Stones pushing into a central midfield position, causing an overload, and teams just couldn't deal with it. So that was kind of out of the box from Manchester City, and you can't really, yes, you can say, well, they played two at the back sometimes even one at the back, right? If they've got Kyle Walker one-on-one, he's always winning a foot race with any striker, even the fastest ones. And they dominated possession. So that was a bit of a frog out of the box. City did get success with some kind of shape like that. However, I wouldn't class that as 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3. They basically had the players to switch in and out of different positions at their own free will. Stats say that they did use three at the back for around 32 or 33% of their matches. And with John Stones or one of the central defenders pushing into the midfield slot, they didn't use the conventional or the traditional wing back. Onto the 2024-2025 season now, where Brentford under Frank did still play a few games. It was around 10 or even less than 10 matches with a back three shape. They had a better season than the previous season where they finished 9th, and it was the highest points they managed to muster in a Premier League season. So it was a better season for Brentford. However, they did use more of a four at the back formation than they did the previous season with three central defenders. So again here, the improvement for Brentford, yes, you can say player additions. They did have a better season, but mostly playing a four at the back. Now, I'm not biased against three at the back, because if you use three at the back well, it can be majestic, very hard to beat. However, if you get it wrong or you haven't got the players in your squad to play it correctly, it can be an absolute disaster. Wolves continued with this same shape from the previous season under Gary O'Neill, and then they kept the same shape at three at the back when Pereira took over as well. And although they did have a better end to the season with Pereira coming in, they did finish 16th, which was actually, of course, one place lower than United finished, also playing some kind of tragic three at the back. Going on to a team who was a little bit more successful then, Crystal Palace ended up finishing 12th and obviously winning the FA Cup. Now with Palace, they did play three at the back very well, as this shape, this formation suited the players they have or had in the squad. They had the three central defenders, what was solid and able to defend the wide areas behind the wing-back positions. Also, they had the wing-backs who was able to actually get back in defence but also attack. But the main point to remember here is a lot of the teams would face Palace thinking that they are the favourites to beat Palace. So they will go there trying to attack Palace. They'll go into a game with that mindset, and Palace will hit them on the counter. And as you saw in most of the wins that Palace got in that season, they were well equipped to destroy teams on the counter-attack. Whereas when you're let's say a perceived bigger club, such as United or anyone else, a lot of the teams aren't going to come out and attack you. They're going to sit back, which means it's more difficult that for perceived bigger club playing a back three to break down a team who's just set out defending in their own defensive third, and then it's that team who then hits United or the bigger club on the counter-attack, and that is when teams playing with wing-backs get found out in that space behind the wing-backs and to the side of the central defender, whether it's the left central defender or the right central defender, who then has to get out quickly and cover the space left from the attacking wing-back. So Palace of course, in my opinion as well, didn't have to deal with that issue because they were the team doing the counter-attacking instead of the team playing with a three at the back who were being counter-attacked, if that makes sense. Again, when you go to the players they have in the squad or in the team against United's players, when you got Harry Maguire, you got trying to get out to the wide areas. Okay, maybe they're not the best players to get out wide. Yes, you got Shaw sometimes playing a left side central back because he's used to playing fullback, so at least he knows how to defend like a fullback. But still, he hasn't got the mobility as someone like David Luiz, who I'm going to go on to now for Chelsea, in the Chelsea winning team of Conte of the season 2016-2017. Now, in this season, Chelsea used three at the back. However, their squad was equipped to play this way. They had Cahill at the back with David Luiz and Azpilicueta, and them three just worked really well. Now, with David Luiz in one of the central defender positions in a three at the back, yes, look, we all know that is very erratic at times. However, it actually played in their favour because when you need someone just to defend, just to make sure that you're agile enough, you're mobile enough to defend the wide areas as well as being able to defend the central areas, he's your guy. Cahill, solid, already formed Premier League title winning partnership with John Terry in previous seasons. Okay, so he was perfect. Azpilicueta then came in and did a job, comfortable in wide areas as well. But I think a lot of people can forget they did have Victor Moses on one side and Alonso on the other side. And that season, Alonso as well, were absolute machines. They were so comfortable getting up and down the pitch. They also respected the defensive duties, what made Chelsea really hard to break down that season. Now, again, comparing that personnel already, what I just mentioned, the players what I mentioned already, to United's squad or availability of players, it's not the same. Because on top of that, ahead of them, they had Kante, they had Fabregas, and they had Matic. So they had them three players to rotate around as the two central midfielders who were more defensive minded. Absolute solid protection in front of that back three, or you could say back five when the wing backs actually got back to defend. A really difficult unit to break down. Now, when you look in United's new signings, obviously with Cunha and Mbuma, absolute positive signings for sure. I've just watched the game against West Ham United in America, the pre-season friendly match. United look really good. We look really well with Cunha hard-working. Mbumo's also hard-working player, which is positive. However, when you look to try and replicate that Chelsea team, I'm not comfortable with our central defenders, with the ability to get out quickly. The goal that Bowen scored for West Ham actually came from that situation where there was a gap to the left of Heaven. I know, look, Heaven probably isn't going to be starting, but it does show how vulnerable we're still going to be throughout the season when we get counter-attacked by teams, which is going to happen. And with respect to West Ham, stronger teams are actually absolutely going to destroy these areas behind our wing-backs. It's difficult to judge from these friendly matches, however, it does give you some idea. We was a lot better in possession. We're a lot better now. Cunha's able to actually penetrate into the attacking third, comfortable running with the ball. Same with Bumo, who's hard-working, very direct. So this is positive. This is going to take a lot of pressure. And you could say this is the penetration which we were missing trying to break down teams when teams want to sit back and defend against us. No issue there whatsoever. But where you look at that Chelsea team, when you're looking at Kante, when you're looking at Matic, although Ugarte had a great game today, and I really like him as a player when he is on form, Casemiro looks like he's really shedded a bit of weight and got back into fitness. Are they potentially going to be our defensive players? Okay, that'll have to do. However, Kante and Matic together were absolute machines. And if we've got Maguire and we've got Lit back, they're going to need a lot of cover. Because if you're playing them two and then Shaw on the left, they're not as mobile as you would hope. I really like Lenny Yoro. He played the right side of a central three for about 70 minutes. He looked really comfortable, going out, defending the wide areas, cleaning up through the centre as well, and really good with his distribution. Really good to see. But I'm worried about the left side, where Heaven did get found out. he also didn't have a disastrous game either. But it just shows that when West Ham did hit on the break with Bowen, he did score. We were too slow getting out defending that wide area, and it happened again on the right-hand side. But this was later on in the match when there was basically all the changes later on in the game. And it was Bowen again. It was that space behind a wing-back, wide central defender not getting out to the wide area to defend enough. And I think this is going to be a consistent problem throughout the season, especially when we come up against stronger teams who got even better wide players. And for me, I just don't feel we've got the strength in depth, and I don't think we've got the quality of starting defenders and wing backs. Don't get me wrong, although I love the attacking potential of the wing backs, just feel it's still going to be really fragmented. I don't think they're going to be settled. Of course, it's going to be better than last season. However, getting this shape right, getting this formation right, like some of the European teams who play this formation year in, year out do, it can take years. Now, this is my only issue with this saying I don't think it will work, because will United have the time to get it right? Will Amorim have the time to get it right? It looks like they're trying to support him, they're doing their best, but if we don't get the results, if we don't get the outcome of the seasons that we're looking for, is he going to be allowed to finish the full season? Ideally, to get the right personnel in place, to get everyone on the same page and knowing how to play this shape, it may take another 2 seasons, another 3 seasons, maybe 5 years to get back on track. You're just not going to get enough time. And that's my only fear. Where would it be better if we just played to our strengths, 4 at the back, whether it's a 4-2-3-1, let our attacking players attack and just be a little bit more solid at the back? Or we're going to go for it, we're going to go score goals, we're going to concede the season as well, but we're going to beat teams by scoring more, literally. So along with the back three I'm not comfortable with, the wing backs are like the selection of wing backs, because we are quite comfortable in wide attacking areas, in my opinion, I would say. However, I'm looking at the goalkeeper. I'm not comfortable with the goalkeeping options either, which plays, again, an important part in this back unit. So that's my opinions on that. And now I'm going to go through previous seasons of the Partnership's previous Premier League winners. And United do feature twice in that, obviously being up until Fergie leaves, and then mostly dominated by Manchester City, Chelsea and Liverpool, with Leicester City thrown in. But let's take a look how that worked out for them. I've only gone back to 2010, 2011, because before that, with all the money in the game now and with more kind of even strength in depth with regards to the top clubs, Chelsea, City, even Spurs now, Arsenal and Manchester City, it isn't as one-sided or two-sided as it used to be anymore. So I just started with 2010, didn't want to go too far back. And we're starting off, of course, here, United 2010-11 winners, when Vidic was in the frame with Ferdinand, absolute machine of a partnership. And you can see we beat Chelsea, 80 points, mostly down to goals scored because we didn't have the best defensive record. And you might say, well, they only played 18 matches together. But the beauty of this was O'Shea, Johnny Evans, even Wes Brown, with the flexibility to come in and out when injuries did start happening. Then players were also able to play right back, left back, when you're looking at O'Shea as well, and come in and do a decent enough job as one of their partners. So that's why the partnership wasn't as big as it should have been in terms of 20 to 30 matches played together. 18 matches with O'Shea, like I said, Wes Brown, and then Johnny Evans slipping in, which you will see Fergie's last season as well. Johnny Evans just feature a little bit more. So the next season, Kompany and Lescott played 27 matches together. City ended up winning the title. Obviously, that's when they beat QPR on the last day, in the last few seconds or minutes, whatever you want to call it. Disastrous season there. They outgunned us and they had a better defensive record, but you can see the strength of their partnership there. Here's the final time to win 2012-13. Johnny Evans and Rio Ferdinand providing the partnership there. 14 matches again. This was because, like I mentioned before, injuries were happening, but people were coming in. Vidic did play a part as well. He was close to providing same amount of games played with Ferdinand or Johnny Evans. However, there was a lot more injuries with Ferdinand and Vidic happening. And again, we have players coming in and covering when needed. So the two last league wins for United with a back four wasn't 20, 30 match partnerships in defence. However, we did have the strength and depth of the squad for them to rotate in and out and not be too affected. And of course, with a more stable goalkeeper behind them as well. Not to mention better firepower, which takes the pressure off the defence because look, when you look at partnerships, probably not as strong now as some of them in the past or even ones in the future with Man City, which I'll show you. City now, company again with Di Michelis. Look, no one can touch City when they're scoring over 100 goals, and 22 match partnership with them two and company being an absolute rock, absolute general for a few seasons for City. And at this time, I need to point out that City start to bring in new centre backs, as in cover, and then later on, as the years go by, the players what were used as cover, let's say John Stones, then come into the first team, and you'll slowly see Diaz replacing Company as well. So they have had some consistency, the central defenders with 3 or 4 players which can just come in and out like for like. 36 matches. This is what I mentioned previously in the video. Absolute massive. You can see the consistency there with John Terry and Cahill as well. And they did have the best defensive record, winning the league that title. Although City scored more goals, that just shows you how important this defensive partnership was to Chelsea winning the league. 2016, 15 and 16 was Leicester City. Again, 35 matches. So it shows you that that defensive partnership does matter. Wes Morgan, Robert Huth, not the best defenders in the world, but the partnership at that time was one of the best in Europe. To win the Premier League like that, you could say Man City, United dropped off, Spurs and Arsenal weren't firing all cylinders. However, you can't knock Leicester for winning the matches what were put ahead of him, with the league what was put ahead of him. And again here, shows that the partnership was so important, predominantly playing a 4-5-1 with Jamie Vardy up front on his own most of the season as well. 2016-2017 were covered, but you see Cahill and David Luiz actually played 35 matches together in that back three. So this wasn't a back two, it was a back three, but you can see Cahill was in place and they had the players in place to be successful with the back three. Tottenham actually had a better defensive record that season, but Chelsea were just solid throughout with the firepower. But also, I mentioned everyone in each position just worked. 2017 and 18, Otamendi and company still there. He started to get injured, but Otamendi was there then coming in, soon to be replaced with Diaz as well and Laporte. But they beat United, beat us to the season, just outscoring everyone. And as you can see, although our defensive record was quite solid, we just didn't have the firepower. City 100 points, couldn't get close to that. Although they only played 15 matches together already, they had John Stones coming in and out when needed, so they had that rotation like for like in the central defensive areas. 2018-19, Laporte and John Stones, just like I just mentioned, okay, they already that strength in depth in the central defensive areas to replace players what were going out. Again, 95 goals for firepower, goals against 23. Okay, so it's just showing you how solid City were throughout these years, how consistent they were as a defensive unit. Liverpool winning. Look, this was the COVID season. Okay, Van Dijk and Gomez, they played 28 matches together in a partnership. Solid amount of games there. 2021, you got Diaz and John Stones again showing a solid partnership. Again, Laporte is still in the frame here, coming in and out to partner Diaz or Jones. So they've got that nucleus, they've got that core of central defenders, which I can't see us having, even with a back three. Have we got good enough central defenders to build that dynamic partnership, to build that know-how of each other, how each other want to play, how comfortable each other are defending in wide areas? I just don't feel it. Diaz and Laporte now, they've been with each other for a few seasons by then as understudies, and now Diaz, like I said, has replaced company. Man City win the title again with the best defensive record with Liverpool, but they almost scored 100 goals again. Okay, so it does matter getting the defensive unit right. 2022 and 23, Diaz is there again with Akanji, and they've got the best defensive record again. Okay, 19 matches, but they did rotate in and out. And it just shows you how important it is and how important it is for United to get it right, which is going to be more difficult with the three central defenders. 23-24 season, Ruben Diaz is there again, so he's been ever present the last four seasons when they won the league now. And although Arsenal had, look, we saw Arsenal last couple of seasons now been very, very good defensively. Again, they just had the extra firepower. But it just shows you again how you do need, if you're pushing for them, fine margins to get 1 or 2 points more than your contenders, than those like Arsenal, like Liverpool. You do need to have that defense, that ability to defend in a partnership, whether it's a two, whether it's a three at the back. You need that consistency, you need that understanding and the ability with the strength and depth. If you haven't got one of them, it's not going to work out defensively. 2024, 2025, Van Dijk was absolute machine with Kanate. And as you can see here, they didn't have the best defensive record, but 30 matches is a lot of games to build that understanding, especially with Van Dijk as well. Okay. So as you can see, partnerships did feature. Have we got a strong enough basis to build a partnership at United, whether it's two outstanding partnered players within the back three or a back three comfortable enough, one playing the shape and formation of a back three going into a back five, with the wider central defenders having to go out into wide fullback positions to defend in wide areas, and building that understanding, at least with two of the central defenders, with the strength and depth to have players come in and understand what their role is and forming a partnership if needed, with players getting injured with another central defender. We're looking at Maguire, we're looking at De Ligt, we're looking at maybe Shaw. I'm just not confident comparing to what I've just shown you with these partnerships in the past that we're quite there yet. Let me know what you think in the comments and watch more videos and playlists right here.